Hello and welcome back for the CCMTG special 10-year anniversary edition. This time we are joined by the third longest running member of CCMTG, Casey Bloodworth.
Hey man, how's it going?
Dude, it's going good. I miss you.
I miss you too. It's been forever.
Yeah, well,
the amount of
I was going to say, having kids will do that.
Oh, sure. I'm saying the amount of false starts we had trying to make this podcast happen. I feel like we've been trying to record this
for 2 weeks.
10-year anniversary since at least the 5-year anniversary.
Yeah, there we go. Right? There we go. Yeah, that's true. It's funny. Like, for behind the scenes, I got laid off. Like, I asked Casey to do a podcast, and then the next day I got laid off, and I was like, oh, that's great. That's good. It's good timing. So, Casey, it's been, I don't know how long it's been since you were on the show, but it's been a few years. Why don't you tell people?
Yeah, like 6 years.
It really?
I think so. I think it was like, actually, I think it's almost 7 years. I think it was like January or maybe March of 2017.
Wow. That's crazy to think about. So, you know, it was really easy last episode with Kyle to talk about what era Kyle was in, because he was in, 3 episodes total between everything. You, however, I have these written down because I had to write them down because I was like showing Mason just the number of iterations of co-hosts that were on the show for a little while. And
yeah.
And you were in 1, 2, 3, 4 iterations of the show.
I see 5 on your list, and I think you missed one.
Oh, I also think that I missed one because I think that there's no Spencer Casey alone. And I'm sure
that's true.
Happened.
Yeah, that was a very brief. Yeah. So here's how should we go through these chronologically?
We could try. That could be a fun thing to do for the 10-year anniversary. So episode 1, Matt, Casey, Spencer, Kyle.
Yeah.
Episode 2.
Yeah, and episode 2 through, I want to say, somewhere in the 30s?
Yeah, Matt stayed on for about a little over half a year, I'd say.
Yeah, that's about what my recollection was.
And then we got QJ.
Yeah, and that lasted until I left at episode... I think I'd intended to have episode 100 be my last one, but then ended up kind of being 99 was my last one, and then I was a guest on 100. Is that the way you remember that?
I thought that you wanted episode 100 to be your last one, and then you were like, I actually just don't play Magic anymore. I don't want to do this. I'll see you guys for episode 100. And you quit in 93 or something.
I don't think it. I thought it was maybe it was 98. I think we were very close to the finish.
Yeah, I think
100.
that's true. I think that's true.
Yeah, and then one thing I just realized actually when I was looking through the constructed criticism archives on your website, and I thought that I was away for much longer than I was, but I think I was back by episode 125 or something like that.
Yeah, after QJ quit, and it was me and Manny, and then me, Manny, and Michael. You asked to come back pretty quickly, and then we kind of did this rotation, if I remember correctly.
The way I remember it is that it was you and Quentin, and then you and Manny, and then me, you and Manny, and then me, you and Michael. I don't remember.
Oh. I think what ended up happening is that because we didn't ever want to do more than 3 people, and so we aligned people's episodes. So maybe you didn't record with Manny much.
I did record with Manny a few, but I guess for me it was a transition from Manny to Michael that I didn't think that they overlapped.
Yeah, they recorded some episodes together.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, so I that was kind of one of the more interesting times in CC where we because we had so many people and because the topics were so different at the time, the show notes were before the show we would pre-write our initial thoughts so that as a host I could talk about what the person was going to say kind of before they say it. It was a more interesting time in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it was
After that, we got the you, Michael Casey. Then we had me, Michael Mason, as like a technical producer, and then as kind of like when I was sick, he would fill in, kind of thing, which was cool.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if these are out of order or not. I think I went back and looked, but then we have, Michael got hired by Wizards. Mason Trey joined the show. Then it was John and Seth. Then it was me and Matt. But you're saying I'm missing one here.
Well, I was saying because you don't have Spencer, Casey, and Manny.
Got it. Yeah,
because I didn't think that Michael joined until midway. I don't remember. But I remember recording quite a few with Manny, or at least a number of them with Manny.
Yeah.
But I guess I didn't realize that Michael and Manny had recorded any together.
That's crazy. I gotta ask, we don't have to go through the rest of them because it's kind of, where the next time that you were on, I think it was episode 300?
Something like that, yeah. Some kind of anniversary or milestone episode.
I know what you thought, but you gotta tell us, just like, I was like, hey, we're celebrating 10 years. I'm doing podcasts with all of my individual co-hosts. What was your thought?
When you told me that, I immediately transformed from a young and virile individual into a decrepit and ancient undead creature. I didn't realize, logically speaking, I guess I understand that it has now been 10 years since 2013, but man, I was not emotionally prepared for that news, to be honest with you.
Dude, neither was I. It was funny as I was watching a YouTube video of like this person did this 10-year celebration. He like interviewed his parents about like, what has 10 years been like for like me going through this and like doing this. And I was like, I wonder when our 10-year anniversary is. And I was like, holy crap, it's in like October and November of this year. And so I was like, I gotta do something. So it was fortuitous. I want to ask you, is there something that you hoped people learned from kind of the eras that you were in of CCMTG?
Yeah, so that's actually the reason I was looking at the archive, to just try to remember any of these episodes that I was on, because like I remember doing this show for a long time, but it's been so long that the individual moments blur together. But I think the biggest thing that I hope people take away from ever listening to me podcast would be looking at data, like not going by feelings, but by like being able to take a step back and analyze either a metagame or a board state like that, kind of that data-driven approach, or just that Grey Merchant of Asphodel is a very bad card. So the two main things.
Yeah. That's too funny. Looking back on it, I think about. I guess this isn't about me though. This is about you, man. I have some thoughts on this, but I think we'll get to some of them on our next thing, which is like, do you have a favorite CC memory?
Yeah, I mean, I think that anytime, my favorite memories would all be probably when we were like traveling and got to meet fans and listeners of the show. And that one time for like a moment hanging in the air where Huey Jensen said he listened to our show. And then after we were looking at each other in shock, he corrected to say he had once listened to our show when John Finkel was on it. And we're like, oh, that makes so much more sense.
Yeah. I thought for sure. I mean, Matt wasn't on the John Finkel episode, so like that one is one I get to share with you. And like one of the best quotes in CC history is you actually asking John, like, you like go really in depth in this question too. You're like, you're such a thoughtful and stoic person, and like as you watch it, you can see that your brain is always calculating and thinking. So like when you're in one of these top 8 moments and you're having one of these complex turns, like what are you thinking about? And John Finkel just looks like the response to you, and he's just like, honestly, I don't think that much. Like I'm probably thinking like, should I get Indian food for dinner tonight?
Yeah, like I set him up for this. Yeah, like a chance to like really, like explain what's going on behind the curtain, and he was like, no, I'm just doing my own thing. Yeah, that was very funny. But then later on, like he actually did. I was thinking about this, and I actually was talking to a friend of mine who still plays some Magic recently about that episode, and how I do think that John Finkel actually gave probably like the single best piece of advice any Magic player can hear in that podcast, which is like have the courage to make the 51% decision every time, no matter how many times it comes up on the 49 side.
Yeah.
I think he said it more eloquently than that, but
no, he did. That was a good episode. It's one of the few that like I went through the backlog and like put on the website again. So you gotta have one of the goats up there.
oh yeah, sure.
Any other memories?
Yeah, it's I have to go and probably try to listen to some of these episodes to really remember like recording. I think I'm looking right now. I see a Legacy Deck Tech sneak and show that Michael and I did, and I think this Deck Tech might be like 90 minutes long.
Yeah.
I have a recollection of that, and that was really funny. But oh man, for like a specific episode, I wish that I remembered them more individually than I do.
Oh man, I that's okay, man. That I think that also it can't have been 7 years because the Jace giveaway was 7 years ago on my timeline, so it can't be that long.
Well, I'm looking at the website right now, and I think the last thing that looks like I actually appear on as like a regular is episode 174, and that was February of 2017.
All right.
So it's been 6 years. Six, almost 7 years.
I gotta ask you, about I don't know, I don't remember what episode it started. It's before the kind of the show calls back to on the website these days, but one of the things that we really pushed is about being always improving, and that we still do today. And I'm kind of curious, like, has that impacted you outside of Magic since you've left the show? Kind of that belief that you held so strong to?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that that's like something that we made a commitment to, and I think that like needing to kind of live that in and outside of the podcast, I think made major improvements to all of our like personal lives and professional lives.
Oh yeah.
Right, like just you got to live the gimmick, right? But it like really just always viewing things through that lens really did help me, and I still do that. I still think of like, is this the best way we can be doing this? Does this actually make sense? And it's turned me into one of those very annoying guys in conference calls, but I also think that it's helped my career a lot, and it's helped my personal life a lot. It's just that philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty crazy. I mean, obviously 10 years is a long time, but it is crazy to think how our lives have changed since, we were early 20 buttheads, just going to PTQs, sleeping, on couches, and oh man, the good old days.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's when was the last time you had an Everclear and Red Bull?
That I can remember. That's just not an appropriate beverage.
Yeah, there's almost no upside to drinking that. It's actually almost a miracle if anybody thought anything we had to say was worth listening to. If they knew that we were drinking that, nobody would ever listen to this podcast.
So thanks for spoiling it. Really decreased my listenership right there.
People the divides, before and after.
That's always improving right there. Just the fact that we don't do that kind of stuff.
We practice better self-care than that now.
Yeah, exactly. Is there? I mean, you kind of answered this a little bit, but is there a training grounds that you remember coming up with yourself or that you really resonated with for the listeners?
Yeah, I recall. Actually, kind of forgot about this, but looking through this list of what's on the website actually did help me a lot. Which is that I think we did quite a few episodes on building mana bases. Something that I was very passionate about because I thought so many people had terrible mana bases. And we had like a number of really in-depth training grounds about how to build a mana base and what the purpose of different types of lands, your ratios of tap lands and whatever lands that cost you other resources. And I hope that that helped people because I think that that's one of the most important skills that gets really left by the wayside.
That is not the one I thought you were going to say.
What do you think I was going to say?
I managing your resources would be one of them that, I think it was the first episode we did that was featured on the mothership. That's one that I thought.
Oh, sure.
That's one.
Yeah, that is a really good one.
And then,
but then also like the next 150 were also all about that, just in different, slightly different iterations.
Sure, that's fair. I'm trying to think if there's one that you and I did alone that, like, other than like the guest ones, that really stand out.
I mean, honestly, some of those guest episodes that you and I did, just the two of us, I think are some of the best ones because that like I was involved with recording, predominantly because I didn't talk that much and we just let like some of these great players just explain things.
Yeah.
Alexander Hain was one that I think not a lot of people like. He doesn't do a lot of the kind of the shows. He doesn't like he streams sometimes or did back in the day.
He did his own podcast with KOAT after you left.
Did he? Oh, okay, yeah. I didn't know that. But for a while, we kind of had the exclusive on like really high level content from him. And
yeah, we
mostly just stayed out of his way.
We had him on a few months ago. Okay, it's cool. Actually a little over a year now. And one of the things that I got to mention that podcast with them, and I remember like you and I were so upset that his audio was kind of rough on that episode because he just like delivered like a world-class like amazing breakdown of Magic, and we were like, this audio, like, I wish that we could fix this audio. I remember us being so upset about that one.
I remember that as well. I'm saying like his internet wasn't very good or something, and so the fidelity, but like everything he said was actually solid gold.
Yeah, it was pretty great. I thought for sure. I gotta ask this: do you remember the set reviews? And if you want to mention anything about those?
Yeah, I do. Those first handful of set reviews we did, where we reviewed every card, like that's insane. No person should ever do that. But it was fun. Like we definitely got into it. We had fun. We made a day or a couple of times a weekend out of it. But man, those were brutal. Once we kind of switched formats, it became a lot more manageable. But also, I recall, and I don't know if it was widespread clamor, but I do recall there being some clamor from the listeners to go back to a recording, reviewing every card.
Oh yeah, everybody wants the old stuff all the time. So I mean, Kyle brought up hashtag would that be good on his episode of this, and I was like, dude, somebody brings that up once a year. Everybody's like, bring back hashtag would that be good. And I'm like, you have YouTube comments now. You don't need hashtag would that be good.
That was a fun segment, especially when there was one that wasn't Magic related that we got to answer.
That was the best.
Those were always the best ones.
What do you hope that CC can do for listeners moving forward? I mean, it's been 10 years. I don't know how much we have left off or what's left in the tank, but what do you kind of hope that listeners can get out of it moving forward?
Well, I think that I haven't. I'll confess I have not listened to the show recently, but I'm hoping that they're still getting the same kind of process-driven thinking and analytics-based research, giving that really giving people who aren't on testing teams and stuff, the benefit of being on that, getting that kind of data, having that kind of be able to like just partake in that kind of discussion. I think, that I know based on, listeners that I've talked to over the years, that was feedback that I got, that like people felt like was really helping them, just like having access to that kind of dialogue that they weren't getting from anywhere else. There was limited resources, but before our show, there was not like a really regular, like certainly not any long running, constructed like spike podcasts.
Yeah.
Right. And the ones that did were largely, they were, they had qualities, like, I'm not like dissing anybody, but none of them were as like analytics and top down driven as ours were.
Yeah.
So I hope that people are getting that.
This is one of my favorite CCMTG memories. So, during episode 300, I was like, where can people find you? It might have been episode 200, but you had the best line. You're like, you don't.
You don't find me, I'll find you.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I was thinking about that when I saw the show notes you sent me, because I'm totally off of social media now. So there's really, even more than ever,
find me in the streets.
You have to wait for me to find you. Yeah.
Any shout outs you want to give? Anything you want to say before we say goodbye?
Well, I mean, shout out to you for keeping this going for 10 years. That's insane, and your dedication to doing that is truly impressive, and I want you to know that. And shout out to Devonair for putting up with it.
Yeah.
Well, while we all lived together, that was it definitely took over the house a lot. So, and I'm sure since.
Dude, I don't know, that episode 100 party was a good time for everybody, so.
Yeah, that was fun. God, but that was, 8 years ago, I guess.
Oh, that's so gross. All right.
Man.
Good times. We're going to cast Umamox and our opponents are going to pay for it. All right, man. I just want to say thank you to you. Like, this show wouldn't exist. Like, I can honestly say it wouldn't exist without you. It wouldn't be what it is today. It wouldn't have, the Frank Karsten-esque power rankings that you are the one that, changed the formula for. It wouldn't have that type of stuff without you. And I hope you know that, forever, as long as the show exists and for as much as it helps people, you are a huge part of that.
Well, thank you, man. That means a lot to me, and I hope that any contributions I made are still helping people, level up their Magic game.
All right. Thank you, everybody, so much for listening to this edition of the 10-year anniversary special. We will have somebody else next week, but none of them will be, will be the person that married me and my wife and my best man like Casey Bloodworth was. Bye.
Yeah,
everybody.
that's right. Bye.